Good morning, everyone, and welcome again to one of our Wednesday in Conversations with. I'm live this morning on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube with David Somerville. Morning, David. Thank you for joining me.
Good morning, Brian.
So I know you're a busy guy, so I really appreciate you taking the time to joining me this morning. For everyone out there, David owns a recruitment agency. You can see his the link to his website there in the screen in front of you. We're going to talk about recruitment, staffing, the job market, all that kind of stuff. So once we get into the stream, if you have any questions about the job market to anything recruitment related, then please post your questions into the comments box. It's either on whatever platform, whether it's YouTube or LinkedIn. If you paste the question into the comments box, then we can see them, and we will do our very best to try and answer them. If we can't answer your questions, then we will come back to you after the stream with an answer to whatever question you post to us. So, good morning, David. Thank you for having me.
Sorry, Brian, I lost you there.
We seem to have some lumps on the internet this morning.
Yeah.
So I said, good morning. Thank you for joining me.
I know, it's a pleasure. Nice to be here, Brian. It's the first time for me in this format, so I'm looking forward to it and dealing with questions people have.
So you obviously own a recruitment agency. The job market seems to be strange. The world seems to have changed a lot since COVID. We hear a lot of stuff in the news about the job market and people not being able to get the staff that they require. What's it like from your end?
Okay, I think it's important to tell you where my market is, basically. We work extensively within financial services. And also within sales. Now, a lot of these roles have to be office-based, contact center, etc., etc. And I've been working within recruitment for 23 years. But I have to say, the last 6 to 12 months have been some of the most peculiar and bizarre I've seen. And I'll tell you why. And I've been having this conversation with 2 clients over the last couple of days. We've got a number of jobs out there at the moment which are quite specialised and are managerial positions, but people want to work from home.
Right.
Now, they want to continue working from home I can't get my head around the fact that you're supposed to be managing and developing people. So you actually need to be with those people. Call me old-fashioned on that one. But I'm getting people before they'll even speak to me saying, well, if it's not work from home full time, I don't want to know. And these are like 60, 70, 80,000 pound a year jobs.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it?
It's in particular 2 or 3 types of areas. I'll give you 2 that I'm working on at the moment. One is a paraplanner working with financial advisors, and the other is a senior compliance officer. Now, both of these, the paraplanner will need regular contact with the advisors. Now, you could say, well, you could do that over the phone, you could do it virtually. Of course you can. But there is no substitute for sitting down and poring over some documents together. Very difficult to do over the internet. And also, the compliance role is managing 20, 30 people. And physically having to sit down and again go through documents, complaints, quality assurance with them. Very difficult to do from home. And I and the clients, we've sat down recently and said, what do we do? Because we're being sort of led by candidates saying, well, if I don't get this, I'm not even going to talk to you.
Is that because the roles that perhaps had during the lockdown and COVID, they were actually able to carry out those roles from home?
Well, they were, because everybody was working from home. But of course, the junior staff have now returned to the offices. So if you take, for example, the compliance role, all the staff are back in the office. But when I talk to people for the managerial role, most of them want to continue working from home. And the big corporates that when I'm fishing to find these people are allowing them to work from home. Whereas the smaller companies, the SMEs, need these people in the office. And I think that's the difference.
Yeah.
But I can't see any commercial reason why you would let somebody work from home. Now, COVID is under control to a point. There are no restrictions. We all go to the theatre, the football, the pub. Why not go back into work? And I just can't get my head around why a lot of people feel they're entitled to work from home.
Is it not? I think it's a very interesting question, isn't it? Because I think there's a lot in there to unpack, and I think it's if you as a person has seen that the role you fulfill can actually be done from home. I understand that your
Mm,
staff that you're managing sat in offices, so ideally you should be around them. But if you have seen that it can be done, changing from one job to another, you don't want to get yourself in a worse position than what you are in currently, would you?
mm. No, and there's a good point there. But the other side of it, for the candidate's perspective, if you're not in the office, you're not being seen by senior managers. Now, most people receive promotions, etc., by stuff that they do, which is recognised within the business, obviously. If you're not there, how are you being? You're not being visible.
No, it's an interesting balance. It really is. It's
I mean, somewhere in the middle is about right. But my own view is that working from home should be a privilege and supported by a business case, which will support and promote the business case for the business who ultimately are paying you, not a
mm.
right from day one when you walk through the door.
I,
That's
s-
my own take on it.
I suppose again the market dictates, what's right and wrong, doesn't it? Because if if a business can't get the staff it needs unless it changes what it's looking for in terms of, working perhaps half the week at home and half the week in the office, if you can't get the staff you need to sort of make changes to adapt to the market, don't you?
Well, that's one thing you can do, or you can offer a very attractive package. Now, again, looking at the compliance role, the package on offer is very, very fair. I mean, I do salary surveys for companies all the time, and from where the job is placed, it's a very fair package, and it's a nice job. Now, we've been working on it only a couple of weeks, and I've come across so much resistance. I've gone back to the client and said, "Hey, all these people want to work from home," and she said, "Well, maybe we should let them." I said, "But you need to manage
Mm.
the business. So ultimately, this is for the business." So we've reached a compromise and said, "Look, okay, we will look at working from home when it's right for the business. For the first few months, you must come in, meet some objectives, i.e., start to develop the staff. How are you going to get to know your staff if you never see them?
Yeah.
Even just a coffee or the banter in the office. Very hard to have banter over the phone or the internet, isn't it, really?"
Yeah, no, it's not the same. Of course it's not.
Yeah. So instead of being a right, I think it should be a privilege. And
Mm.
and it has been in the past when senior managers are working from home today. And they do tend to get more done because the phone's not going or somebody's not badgering them. I do get that. But when it's 5 days a week and your staff are sitting in the office, I don't see how you can manage that.
No, that is an interesting problem for sure, and I think it's because people have seen what can be possible. People are not going to let it go, are they?
No,
It's not going to be something that's going to go away.
no, no. And what I'm suggesting isn't the ideal answer because we will lose people. And I said, look, it may take an extra 2 or 3 months to find the person you want, but we will find them.
Yeah.
And the other thing, and I'm not saying this is with everybody, but if you give in straight away and say, right, you can work from home, I've evidence of people saying, oh, well, can I have this? And can I have that? And they come very entitled. And 3 or 4 months down the line, you've got a very problematic employee who thinks, they're doing you a favor by being employed by you. And somewhere in the middle of the balance.
Yeah. It's about drawing the line, isn't it?
Mm,
So that was quite interesting. Something you mentioned earlier. You say you do salary reviews for companies. That must be quite difficult at the moment, with inflation running at 10% and forecasted to go up next year to maybe all the way up to 18%. How
mm.
do you do a fair salary review in a market where you are seeing inflation reaching those numbers? If someone came to me and said, I need an 18% pay rise, it's like, you know,
Yeah.
How do you do a fair review? How's that even possible?
Okay, so what we would do when I take on board a new assignment, I will look at the role, the spec, and bear in mind I've done this for 23 years, so I've got a good idea. If we park London, which is very different,
Yeah.
so you're essentially adding 20% on minimum to London anyway. So if I look at a role and say, right, okay, I will have a look at what other companies are paying for that role within a 50-mile area. I will then look at the qualifications. Are they any different? Go through all of that. What about the travel? To make it as attractive as possible, the salary, without being over generous or being stingy at the end of the day. One of the things I will shy away from, and I know this is a bugbear of candidates and a bugbear of mine, is when you see a job advert for competitive salary. Well, what is a competitive salary? Yeah. What's competitive to me may not be competitive to you. I will never take a job on where the client says, I don't want to advertise the salary. And I will give them a salary range. And if they say, oh, no, that's too much, right, okay, we're going to have a problem attracting the right level of person. Maybe you need to downskill the role. But in fairness, there's a good realization out there with people now. And this is without the inflation side, because I don't know what's going to happen. I can only give the now. This is a competitive salary now, Brian. I can't say, but you may need to increase that by 18% next year. Most businesses would find that unsustainable.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because they've got the energy costs and everything of running their offices themselves.
Are you finding more pressure from your candidates to, inflate the salaries because of all this?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And what I look at when I talk to a candidate about moving forward, people move jobs for a variety of reasons. I mean, going back when I started doing this in 1999, the average person stayed in the job over 5 years. Now, it's not uncommon for me to see somebody have 3 or 4 jobs in 5 years.
Wow.
It's unbelievable. Now, there are when you look at a CV, and we're moving on to something else, and I'll come back to your point in a second. When you look at a CV, you're almost like a detective, because you're looking to see why that person moved on. I just had this conversation with somebody earlier on who couldn't get why I wouldn't put him forward for another job, and he'd had 6 jobs in 5 years. And I said, well, you're going to be my client's going to be your 7th, because he couldn't give me any reasons why I'd moved on other than it was the manager's fault. It wasn't his fault. He couldn't settle because of other staff there. And that was just telling me something about him.
Yeah.
He just wouldn't settle. But there are genuine reasons why people move on. But in an ideal world, I will look at a CV, Brian, and say, okay, I can see why you've left that job, because the next job you've gone to is a level up. And when, just going back to what you talked about there about inflating salaries, a fair salary increase from moving from one job to another without a promotion, but with additional responsibilities, not too many, it's about 10%.
Okay.
If it's a promotion one, you're looking at 15 to 20. So that's the ballpark figure. So if I'm poaching an administrator from one company to another, and it's the same level, the person is quite happy being an administrator, but I've poached them, I'll say to my clients, you're going to have to offer them 10 to 15% more to get them to move.
There has to be an incentive, I suppose.
Yeah, otherwise, why would you move?
No, absolutely.
But there may be other benefits there other than working from home. There are benefits such as free parking. Parking is a big one with people.
Yeah.
Major one. Flexibility of hours. And I'm not talking about working from home. I'm talking about flexibility of hours, particularly for parents. You can attract people on a fairly ordinary salary by saying, yeah, we'll flex your hours. If you have to drop your children in at nursery at 8:30, start at 9:30. And people respect that. They understand, because you're caring for them as well. You're not saying, oh, no, shouldn't have kids, or bowl them in at 8 o'clock, as it were.
Yeah, it's not all about money, is it? So
it isn't. And it's about looking after the whole family. And, we'll come on to it perhaps in a second about the work-life balance. That is a big thing these days. And I'm not sure working from home actually achieves that. going back to what we talked about before.
That is interesting because obviously we as a business we're fully remote, fully virtual.
Mm,
It's definitely a skill you got to learn because it can be a lonely place if you
yeah,
are working from home, and
yeah.
so there's that social aspect that you're definitely losing. So it's yeah, it's interesting. I think work-life balance now does include for most people an element of working from home.
Yeah, and one of the things I've said to people is working from home has its dangers. You're still checking emails at 9 o'clock at night, and you've got to move away from that.
Yeah, it's discipline.
Yeah, if I mean I've worked from home for 23 years. I've got an office in Liverpool, but I tend to work from home. Now, running your own business, as you will know, and people know if they're listening, if they've done that, if you don't put the effort in, there's nothing there at the end of the week.
No.
So you do tend to put the hours in, but it's working smarter rather than harder. And in the hours that you're at that desk, you're fully operational. Now,
It's interesting as well. I completely understand, and I hear what you're saying. You're absolutely right. So, but for some businesses, it's actually a revelation to explore this working from home as well. Because for us as a business, when we started sending our staff home, our productivity went up by about 200%. Yeah, because of the nature of the people we employ,
yeah, yeah.
doesn't like sitting in office space, but actually prefer working in their own environments at their own time.
Mm.
Type thing. So it's a really interesting thing. I can understand for some businesses it must be an absolute nightmare.
Oh, it is. And I mean, I've got a call center, an outbound call center client that when all the people had to work from home at the beginning of lockdown, productivity went up 30%.
Mm.
After 7 months to 8 months, it had actually fallen below pre-COVID rates because people had fallen into bad habits.
That's the thing. You got to have a very strong
Yeah,
organization, yeah,
yeah,
process.
and that's the problem because everyone, when COVID came and this has happened, oh, we'll get rid of all our offices. This will be wonderful, and people can work from home. And
Mm.
but I mean, just changing the subject slightly. If you phone the Inland Revenue, if you have to do that at any time, most of their people are working from home, and they'll say, "I have to get back to you. I don't have access to that system."
Yeah, yeah. Just one thing I wanted to touch on because obviously time moves fast, and I'm conscious of time. How does people actually get to be represented by someone like yourself? Does that do they do you find them? Do you search them out, or do they have to sort of find you in order to get on your books as a candidate? How does that work from both sides, both from the business sides, need a candidate, but also from the candidate side?
Okay, really good question. The answer is both. I advertise jobs on a number of different platforms, UK based. All our jobs, we work UK based, and occasionally we work in Europe as well. So we use all the top job boards. So people respond to adverts.
Okay.
We also have access to databases on those job boards. That's what I was actually doing before I came on to you. I actually call it the grunt work. Every job has its little bit of grunt work, doesn't it? Which
It
you
does.
have to do. But if you do it well, it takes an awful lot of pressure off the other areas. So I was doing that before, and then I'll find people and contact them. So there's two ways there. Also, because I've been in the industry such a long time, if I get a job where I know it's a very specialized role, or dare I say the person's in situ and they don't want to know that they're being either replaced because they're retiring or whatever, moving on through a promotion, I can't advertise it. So I have to do that one very much backdoor stuff where I'm using my contacts and my network, even without naming the company that I'm working for. That gets a bit tricky, but that's what we get paid for.
Sure.
But it's funny, I had this conversation yesterday, Brian, with the likes of LinkedIn now and Indeed. Upload your CV, employers will come running to you, and in a sense they do. But where does a good recruitment company fit in? Well, I can only speak for ourselves, but if a candidate is represented by us, We will, first of all, make sure they're suitable for the role. If they're not, we will tell them and give them the reasons why. We always respond to people. If we move forward, we have to have an agreement with them to say, we're going to do an interview with you. Used to be face-to-face. A lot of it now is over Zoom, etc. We will then provide our clients with the interview notes, and we'll review your CV so it has logical reasons for leaving each job, your achievements, your responsibilities, so your CV will stand out. Now, because we only work on exclusive deals with clients, if I put somebody forward for a job, they will get an interview. It's as simple as that. I don't work what we call contingency, which is where lots of agencies work with somebody and everyone puts their CVs in and the client looks at them and goes, oh, look at him, him, and him. Now, I do that work for them. So by the time the CV lands with the client, it's when can you see him rather would you like to see him?
Sure.
And not every agency works that way, but we're specialised, we're relatively small, and that's the benefit of candidates working with us.
Sure. No, that sounds great. Time is moving on, and I'm conscious that we've been live for 22 minutes now, which is great. We can talk forever about this.
Indeed.
I think you would be interested if we did another one of these in about a year's time, where we could sort of see what's changed in the job market, because it's it's strange times, isn't it? So I think that would be interesting to see what's happened in between.
Yeah, because if we'd have done this 12 months ago, I'd have been saying very different things.
Yes, no, absolutely. It's very relevant stuff. So that's great. So just to finish off, obviously, we were fortunate enough to be able to help you with a website. If you don't mind sharing a few words about how you found that experience working with us.
Yeah, of course. First of all, I'm absolutely delighted with the website. From start to finish, absolutely top drawer. Did everything you said you were going to do. And again, being in a business for 20 odd years, you get a bit skeptical about what people say and do. And I have so many people ringing me, and we can do this with your website, we can do that. When I met yourselves, everything was very plain, straightforward. This is what we do. You've even taught me to be able to edit it myself, which is something, it really is good the way that's done. But absolutely delighted, and we get an awful lot of compliments about the website. Nice, clean, fresh, not overcomplicated, exactly what I wanted, and you listened.
Perfect.
And you delivered exactly what we wanted. So no, absolutely delighted, Brian, and
lovely. Yeah, no, that's lovely to hear. Thank you for that, David. That's very kind of you. So I want to thank you. I can't thank you enough for joining me this morning. We're all busy trying to run our businesses, and you've been kind enough to give me half an hour of your time. So thank you very much for that, and I'll look forward to doing one of these again in a year's time, so we can sort of discuss what's happened in the meantime. Yeah,
indeed.
The job market. So
absolute pleasure, Brian. Thank you for your time.
For everyone out there watching, we're going to obviously shut down now, but if you have any questions, if you watch this video after the fact, then please contact David directly if you need help with recruitment. He's on LinkedIn, Facebook, all the known social medias. You can see his website there. So if you aren't already connected with David, please connect with him and have a conversation with him about recruitment, because he's obviously very, very experienced and knows what he's talking about. And I'm sure you will. If you can't service them, then I'm sure you have connection who can help them out. So thank you very much for watching. Next week, we're having a week off, but I'm live again on Wednesday the 7th with Simon Stoneham, who has a construction company, but he constructs his buildings in a very different way to what you would normally expect. So he's going to come on live with us here to try and explain how that works. So in the meantime, have a wonderful couple of weeks, and we shall see you again next time when we go live in conversation with